26 cars, one bump, half the field, gone. But here is the thing. The wreck was not even the most controversial part of what happened at Talladega Superspeedway on Sunday, April 26. By the time the smoke cleared in Turn 3, NASCAR had a full-blown crisis on its hands. Not just on the track, but in the broadcast booth, on social media, and inside the garage itself. 3 separate controversies exploded out of a single afternoon, and they are still burning. Everyone online picked a villain. The drivers in the garage picked a different culprit entirely. Before any of this blew up, the race actually started in a fairly controlled, almost boring way. NASCAR had stretched the first stage to 98 laps specifically to reduce the fuel mileage game that has plagued superspeedway racing for years. The strategy worked. At first, Stage 1 was cautious, manufacturer-driven, and calculated. Brian Priest won the opening stage. Ford dominated the top of the leaderboard. Bubba Wallace was quietly in the mix, but had nothing significant to show for it yet. Drivers were saving, managing, and playing the long game. The saving was over. The aggression ramped up fast. Lanes got tighter. Pushes got harder. Speeds crept back toward 200 miles per hour with the entire field stacked inches apart. This is exactly the pattern drivers had been warning about with the current superspeedway package for months. The field transitions from patient and calculated to fully committed and dangerously unstable in almost no time at all. At Talladega, with 40 cars running nose to tail at those speeds, that combination is not just dangerous, it is a countdown clock. At lap 115, the clock hit 0. Race leader Bubba Wallace received a strong bump from Ross Chastain at the end of the back straightaway. That shove sent Wallace's number 23 Toyota sideways toward the outside safer barrier directly in front of Cole Custer. Custer came down the track trying to avoid contact, but the 3-wide pack had nowhere to go. It collapsed into itself, and Turn 3 became a wall of smoke and torn-up race cars. Officially, 26 of the 40 cars were collected. That is half the field. Among those caught up in the carnage were Connor Zilisch, Ty Gibbs, Daniel Suarez, William Byron, Carson Hocevar, Eric Jones, Ryan Blaney, and Kyle Larson. Kyle Busch, Josh Berry, and Shane Van Gisbergen also received damage. The race was red flagged at lap 116 for a 10-minute stoppage to clear the debris. It was one of the largest crashes in Cup Series history. Now, here is where the debate started, and it has not stopped since. Watch the replay once, and you will see Ross Chastain's bump send Wallace's car sideways with no warning. Watch it again, and some people will tell you Wallace was moving around too aggressively at the front of a packed field, setting himself up for exactly this outcome. Camp A says Chastain flat-out shoved the number 23 into disaster. Camp B says Wallace was late on the block and put himself in a position where one hard push was always going to end this way. Both things can be true simultaneously, and that is exactly why this incident exploded the way it did. Somehow, amid all that carnage, Carson Hocevar survived. He led 19 of the final 37 laps in the 188-lap race and held on through 3 late restarts to beat Chris Buescher by 0.114 seconds. His first career Cup Series victory. Hocevar celebrated by sitting on the window ledge of his number 77 Spire Motorsports Chevrolet as he drove his victory lap around the massive 2.66-mile track. The crowd loved it. Hocevar said afterward, "I've had this thought up for a while. I'm just so thankful. This is the biggest dream I've ever thought of." There was a genuine feel-good story inside this race, but social media was not interested in the winner. It wanted blood. X, formerly Twitter, did exactly what it always does after a wreck like this. It exploded into 3 separate and very loud camps. The first camp went directly after Wallace. One user wrote, "Can't be bothered to apologize for all the cars he wrecked. Doesn't say he hopes everyone is okay. What an entitled self-righteous." Others called it a self-inflicted wreck and accused him of blocking blocking both lanes simultaneously. Another demanded to know why coverage described him as merely involved in the wreck, when, in their view, he caused it outright. The second camp pushed back hard. They pointed directly at the replay and said Ross Chastain overpushed the draft, and that once Wallace got hit from behind, there was nothing he could realistically do. One user asked plainly, "Can someone explain to a NASCAR noob why it's Bubba's fault? Wasn't he hit from behind?" The third camp, arguably the most level-headed, skipped the individual blame entirely and pointed at the superspeedway package itself. Physics, not driver error. A systemic problem dressed up as a human one. One replay. Three completely different verdicts. That is exactly how Talladega always works online. Then came Bubba Wallace's reaction. And this is where things got genuinely complicated. On teen radio, the immediate, unfiltered response sounded like blame going outward. The quote that got attention was simply, "They wrecked us." That was the raw reaction coming out of the car. But by the time Wallace reached the TV interview, the tone had shifted significantly. He said, "Damn right. Nothing to show for in the first stage, obviously. Just trying to figure out the strategy stuff. Man, just hate it. Hate it for Xfinity. Hate it for our team. Don't want to have any DNFs. We have two now. Just a bummer. But we have to figure out how to be pushed better. So I take responsibility on that, and we'll have a good debrief and figure out what we can do to make our Toyotas a little bit better being pushed and maybe not have that happen." In his official NASCAR post-race statement from the Infield Care Center, Wallace said, "Got wrecked there, unfortunately. Our Xfinity Toyota Camry was a little unstable getting pushed, but manageable. Maybe that hard of a hit was too much, and so unfortunately, we wiped out a bunch of cars. Got to debrief, figure out how to be better. Just kind of riding around. Not doing much in the first stage and nothing to show for it at Talladega, unfortunately. This is a place we come to with a lot of confidence. And it is what it is. We will put this one behind us and go on to Texas and have some fun." He did take public responsibility. That is a fact. But the framing is what lit the fuse for many fans. The phrase "we have to figure out how to be pushed better" came across as too technical, too detached, too spread across the car and the package rather than the driver. What a large portion of the audience wanted to hear was something far more direct. "I moved. I got hit. That one is on me." That sentence never came, and because his tone on team radio sounded nothing like his tone on television, the perception of message management spread fast, and it stuck. Wallace's actual first line when he reached reporter Jaime Little was this: "Well, I dozed off waiting on you so long." It was sarcastic. It was pointed. Little apologized and explained there was a lot going on. That exchange happened. It is documented. But when Fox later posted the interview clip on social media, that opening line and the first portion of the exchange were missing entirely. Gone. The clip started after the snarkiest moment had already passed. Fans immediately accused the network of deliberately trimming the roughest edge off the moment to protect Wallace's image. Whether it was intentional damage control or simply sloppy social media editing, the result looks identical from the outside. And viewers who had spent the entire afternoon complaining that the broadcast felt like a commercial marathon, interrupted occasionally by racing, had exactly zero patience left for this. Fox earned the criticism it received. When you post an interview, you post the full interview. While social media argued in circles, the people who were actually in the crash offered a very different perspective, and it deserves to be heard clearly. Ryan Blaney said, "I feel like we all just got pinballing off each other there. It's not like there's any blame on anybody. It's what this thing is. We see each other. We all just kind of get bumping and banging, and one guy eventually gets turned, with the car being as unstable as it is. It definitely stinks to be out early. That is not a driver saying Bubba Wallace destroyed everybody's afternoon. That is a driver saying the package itself is a powder keg waiting for a spark." Joey Logano, a three-time Cup Series champion and three-time Talladega winner who was collected in the wreck, was even more direct. He said, "You have round bumpers and unstable cars and cars that you're able to pop the air bubble real easy and get to each other's bumper. But when you get there, you've got to be careful because they're not stable. When you get two basketballs against each other, it's not gonna push straight. It's frustrating." Elsewhere, he added, Save fuel or crash? Pick one. That's what it feels like right now. Kyle Larson, the two-time defending Cup Series champion, put it simply. He said Stage 1 was more saving than he expected, and Stage 2 hit with an intensity that blindsided him. I don't know where you find the middle ground, he said. Every driver in that garage was essentially pointing at the same problem. A super speedway package that forces cars into a pattern of patient conservation, followed by inevitable, violent chaos the moment real racing begins. Here is where everything actually lands. Was Bubba Wallace at the center of the big one? Yes. Was he the visible trigger point in front of the entire field? Yes. Did Ross Chastain's shove start the chain reaction? Also yes. Did the current super speedway package turn one bad push into a 26-car catastrophe? Every driver in the garage says yes. Did Fox mishandle the post-race interview? Yes. The internet wanted one clean villain. The garage identified a system failure. Talladega never gives you a simple answer, and this one was messier than most. That's just Talladega used to sound like an explanation. After lap 115 of the 2026 Jack Links 500, it is starting to sound like an excuse. NASCAR has a decision to make about what it values more, the spectacle or the drivers inside the cars, because right now, Talladega keeps delivering unforgettable moments, but they are arriving with a growing sense of inevitability that no amount of post-race spin can explain away. Was Bubba Wallace the real cause of the big one? Or is NASCAR's super speedway package the actual problem? Drop your verdict in the comments right now. If this breakdown gave you something the highlight reels missed, hit like, subscribe to NASCAR Dispatch, and share this with one NASCAR fan who is still arguing about this wreck. Let's settle it.